As men, we need to live a life of purpose. We need to discover what our purpose is in this life. Otherwise, we're going to feel depressed. We're going to wake up unmotivated. We're going to feel like there's just something missing in life. We're not living up to our full potential. And this feeling of lack and maybe even unworthiness. And that's not a pleasant way to live. And as a man, I feel you have to live a life of purpose. And in this video, I just want to talk about that and share with you some ways how you can tap into your purpose, how you can start living in your purpose, how you can discover what that is. Now, the main difference between someone who's not living in their purpose and someone who is just this. The person who's not living in their purpose is usually living a selfish life. Yes, you heard me right. They are usually only in it for themselves, for self-gratification, sensual pleasures, pleasures of the flesh. And on the other side of the coin, people who are living in their purpose are usually living a life that is of service, adding value to the lives of more people than just themselves. Let's use the example of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur. Now, some people may say, oh, they're selfish, these rich business people. Well, listen, they're creating jobs. They are adding value, providing a service or a product to more people than just themselves. And if you want to tap into your purpose, it requires being selfless. It requires figuring out a way that you can add value to the lives of other people. You have to find out how you can, take your own gifts, skills, or talents. If you don't know what they are, discover what they are and use them to add value to the lives of other people. Even in the Bible, Jesus, he only came for the people. He only came for us, for the people. And you can see all throughout, he always mentioned, it's not me, it's God working through me. Or in other words, he would say, it's God's will. I'm here to do my Father's will. Because he came to help others. And this is what we must do in life if we want to live in our purpose, live a life of purpose, overcome this depression, this negative feeling, this feeling of maybe being misunderstood, loneliness, or just not living up to our full potential. If we want to get beyond those negative feelings, we have to figure out a way to add value to the lives of other people. And I obviously am not just going to speak something that I don't live myself. As you can see, I make a lot of content on this page, and it's because I'm adding value to the lives of other people. I'm not necessarily thinking about myself when I'm making these videos. When I'm making these videos, I have to think about the people that are going to watch them. How can I add value to the lives of the people who are watching these videos? How can I help someone in some way? And there's this magical sort of spiritual thing that happens where when you help other people, you receive a feeling of joy, of fulfillment, a pleasant feeling. Just like when you give physically, when you tithe, if some of you tithe, you will receive in miraculous ways. It's the same energetically. When you give to someone, let's say your attention, you give someone your attention, you genuinely want to know, about that person. You ask them questions about their life, about how they're doing, about how they're feeling. They will, in turn, give you this energy back that's like this gratitude, this like, they will feel accepted and loved, and that love will return back inside of you. It's such a beautiful dynamic when you give and how you receive in the different ways, the way that God created it. Now, for people who do wake up in the morning feeling unmotivated and depressed and not knowing what to do, how do you overcome that, right? How do you begin living in your purpose? Well, you have to take some time to disconnect from the external stimuli. I talk about this in a lot of my videos. Disconnecting from the external world and reconnecting back within yourself. How do you do that? Well, you have fasting, prayer. You can, take some time to not listen to music, get away from negative people, and be with yourself. Meditation, journaling. You must take some time to be with yourself and ask how you can, once you discover your gifts, or if you don't know what your gifts are, you have to ask what your gifts are. Ask God, right? Pray. But once you discover what your gifts are, you have to ask, how can I use these gifts to help other people, to add value to the lives of others? Because this is where true fulfillment comes from, and this is what it means to live in your purpose. If you're not adding value to the lives of others, and you're living a life of selfish, self-gratification, sensual pleasures, then you will feel good when you have those things, when you have the pleasures, when you're doing whatever, smoking, drinking, porn, masturbation. You'll feel good when you have those things, but when you don't have them, you will notice that you come back down. You no longer feel good. It's just like this. You feel good when you have it, but when you don't have it, suffering. But when you're adding value to the lives of others, like how I'm doing now, for example, creating these videos, it's not about me. And at the same time, it's doing God's work. And there's nothing more fulfilling than that, than helping other people, but than doing God's work. And that's going to express a different way through you. It expresses one way through me, it's going to express a different way through you. You might not know what that is yet, but as a man, you have to discover what that is. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to feel unfulfilled in this life. And that's not a pleasant way to live life. Now, does that mean you have to figure it out in the next 10 minutes? No. You have to have patience and believe that everything is happening for your highest good, and have faith and ask God. But you also have to develop a burning desire to know what your purpose is. You can't just expect it to come up when you're, indulging in sin. We have to overcome this life of sin and tap into our godliness, you could say. Tap into the will that God has for us. And that's another aspect that I want to talk about, is your purpose is also God's will for you. And one of my coaches says something that stuck with me. He says, you can't discover your purpose if you have an agenda. If you have an agenda, you can't discover your purpose. So you have to sort of give up. You do have to give up your own understanding and desires and ask God what He wants for you in this life. And when I talk about God, I'm talking about the ultimate creator of the heavens and earth, of everything. You have to ask that power what He wants for you in your life. Otherwise, you're going to be in your mind back and forth, in this sort of overthinking, analyzing everything. And that's not a pleasant way to live either. So you have to have faith and ask God what your purpose is, what you're here to do. How can you carry out His will? How can you be a light in the world for other people? You must ask God this. And if you haven't gotten to that point where you want to do God's will, if you still want to indulge in all of your personal desires, then perhaps you're not ready to discover your purpose and begin living in your purpose just yet. And that's okay. Maybe you have some things that you have to play out. Maybe you have a lot more suffering that you have to deal with before you can then tap into your purpose and discover this sort of contentment and fulfillment that is possible. But if you're not ready for that yet, then that's fine. It's very important that we get to a point where, sorry y'all, there's an eagle right in front of me. A beautiful eagle. That's what I love about this lake. See, I get distracted sometimes, especially when eagles fly past. The other day, just a quick, we're gonna go off track for a minute. The other day I saw a baby eagle, which doesn't look like a baby. The thing's like 2 feet tall. It was about 10 feet away from me. I had my water bottle. I was working out at the park. I had my water bottle sitting there. And he came up like within 2 feet of my water bottle and my keys. I thought he was gonna take my keys. And I just see another eagle right now. But to get back on track, I think I might have lost a little bit where I'm at, but I don't think people are ready. Not everyone is ready to do God's will. And it's not an easy path. It's fulfilling. It's absolutely fulfilling, but it's not an easy path. So we have to look at our lives and ask if we are still in a state where we want to, fulfill our fleshly desires, our lower nature desires, or if we want to tap into our higher purpose and do God's will and do God's work in this world. And that requires, turning away from sin, turning away from sexual immorality, turning away from drinking, smoking, partying, hanging out, doing all these nonsense things, lower nature things, which we all go through a stage where these things are like the most important things in our life, and that's where we derive our happiness and our pleasure and our joy from. But we have to get to a point where we realize that none of those things are going to lead to our ultimate fulfillment. And our ultimate fulfillment is going to come when we're living in our purpose and when we're doing God's will. That's where our ultimate fulfillment is going to come. And until you're ready to give yourself up, deny yourself, as Jesus says, and carry your cross daily, then you'll probably continue going through this cycle of pleasure and suffering, pleasure and suffering, pleasure and suffering. It's not the most pleasant cycle. So that's my message for you today. If you gain value, subscribe to the channel. There are a lot more things that I want to cover regarding this topic that I'll make videos on in the future. But definitely leave a comment down below if you have any questions or if you'd like me to elaborate on any specific part of this video in another video. I could probably make another video on something if I left any gaps, if I left anything out. And yeah, hit the like button. That's the least you can do to support the channel. And I will see you in the next video. Much peace and love.